Hey everyone, welcome to Assessment in the Theater Classroom. I'm Lillian Gina Quinones and I'm your high school theater PLC leader. Today I'm going to talk about words like assessment and data. And if you're anything like me, you are an artist first and those words feel a little boxy. They can feel a little limiting at times and frankly daunting. So I want to talk through a little bit about what assessment can look like in the theater classroom, demystify some things, and hopefully pass on some strategies that I've learned over the years that have worked in my space. So before I get into specifically how assessment can work in our spaces as theater educators, I want to give us a couple of working definitions. So the first working definition is for formative assessment, and then the second working definition will be for summative assessment. And those are words you'll see in your grade book. You will be asked to submit them as part of lesson plans. They are everywhere. They are omnipresent all the time, and sometimes they can be confusing. So here are the working definitions that we're going to use to guide us today. They're from edglossary.org. You can find them online. Formative assessment refers to a wide variety of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluations of student comprehension, learning needs, academic progress during a lesson unit or course. So formative assessment is all about what you do while learning is happening on a day-to-day basis. Now, summative assessment is what happens at the end of a defined instructional period. So our working definition is as follows. Summative assessments are used to evaluate student learning, skill acquisition, and academic achievement at the conclusion of a defined instructional period, typically at the end of a project, unit, course, semester, program, or school year. So, formative while it's happening, summative at the end. It's our button at the end of a song. All right. Now, what is expected of us? What are our standards as educators? Every quarter, depending on how your school works or how your district works, every quarter or every semester, you're assessed on certain standards, and we're expected to provide assessments in a certain way. So TEKS standard number 5 and 6 are great ones to refer to if you're ever wanting to make sure that you're covering all of your bases. Standard number 5 is about assessment strategies. So this is about making sure that you have a variety of diagnostic. That means you are checking your students for prior knowledge before you begin a unit, and then formative and summative assessment strategies. So you're using different tools, different instruments that are appropriate for the humans that you have in front of you and what their needs are, right? And then standard number 6 is about how you use them. So it's not just about providing the assessment so that you can give a grade, but it's about using the assessment then, using that data, gathering it, analyzing it, and then using it to measure student progress and adjust where you need to adjust and constantly be improving as a teacher, as an educator. So these, if you would keep them these first 2 slides, keep them in your front of mind as we navigate. How are we then going to take these things and make sure they're happening in our very robust, happy, creative, acting, theatrical spaces? All right, let's see. So I decided, even though if we are thinking chronologically, we're usually going to go diagnostic, formative, summative. However, I like to think backwards. So I'm going to talk to you about summative assessments first. As fine arts teachers in general, our summative assessments are usually performance-based, right? So it's a concert, a recital, an art show, in our case, a play, a showcase, or musical. So I have found that project-based learning and backwards planning work really, really well in the theater classroom and also in production. So because so much of what we do in the classroom is overlapping into our productions, that backwards planning, starting with the goal in mind and then figuring out what you need to get to that point, is really the best way to do it. And that is what I will call an informed opinion. So we're going to lead with the project, right? And on day one, I would recommend laying out all of the information and inspiration for the end project. So know exactly. Let's say you are going to do, in one of my earlier sessions, if you go back and see some of the these webinars that I've done earlier this school year, I talked about monologues, the monologue festival that we do. At the beginning of that project, it is a unit. It's a whole unit that leads up to this final performance day. On the very first day, you want to lay out, take the time that you need. Don't rush through it. Take the time that you need to make sure they know exactly what needs to happen, what is going to be expected at the end of this learning period. Maybe it's the next 4 weeks, maybe it's the next 6, maybe it's the next 9. Maybe this is something that's going to take the entire quarter, and at the end you're going to have this beautiful concert or this beautiful showcase, but there are things that have to happen along the way. We'll talk about that when we get to formative. But here, when you're leading with the project, things that you want to make sure that you share with your students on that first day fall under my information category. So task details, that's all about the what. What are you expected to do for this project or performance? What is the rubric? So what does it look like when it's great, etc., etc. Benchmark assignments. Another thing we'll talk about in formative. So an overview of some of the little mini assignments and mini learnings and discoveries that I'm going to expect you to do along the way. This is how I'm going to make sure you don't wait until the day before to practice, right? And then timelines and deadlines. This is huge. Some kids, we teach high school. Several of them are going to wait till the last minute anyway. But it is so helpful for them to be able to have a calendar ahead of time. If it's a rehearsal calendar or if it's a calendar of deadlines, they know. And you're able to not only hold them accountable, but it gives them a sense of confidence and they understand, okay, all right, Miss Q knows where we're going. So I can trust Miss Q and I'm going to jump all in. Does it always work that way? No, but I think more often than not, right? And then inspiration. I have found that giving them samples of work and giving them a visual of what you want them to achieve gives them a sense of knowing that it's possible. So previous year student projects or performances, like the really good ones. I like to show the really good ones. But you can show a variety. It kind of depends on what your style is. You might want to show a couple of different samples that fall in different areas of your rubric. For me on day one, I just show what I think is stellar work and things that they can strive for. Online content that will serve as our model. So for example, if the students are doing, my IB theater students do a collaborative theater project, there are a bazillion of those online that followed the exact IB rubric. I show them some of the really fun ones that they can kind of use as a model. And then any professional companies, if you are producing a show or a one act and you want to show a professional video of that production so that they can see and get a lot of like really fun ideas in their head, anything on this day that will help them visualize and get excited. We want buy-in. I know we are tired. We want kids to just do what they need to do. But when it comes to the arts, the more they're excited, the more they have bought into the idea that they can create something new and something beautiful, the better the end product is going to be. So anything that can help them get to that place right in this phase is going to press the gas and kickstart some really great momentum for whatever the project is at hand. Some examples of summative assessments are monologues, duet scenes, group devising projects, one acts, solo performances, auditions, and showcases. Some examples of research-based assessments are presentations, video essays, those are a whole lot of fun, research papers, and portfolios. I love a portfolio. We work really hard in my program to help the students keep archives of all of the work that they do, especially junior and senior year, because that then goes towards their fine arts diploma seal. And they just feel so satisfied and proud of themselves when they see their growth. Okay, so that is summative. Let's move on to formative. Now that we know where we're going, we can make some decisions about what the stops are along that road. So I've divided this into a couple of sections: timeline, benchmarks, and daily progress. So the first thing you want to think about is how long you think your students will need to accomplish the goal. If you've done this assessment, if you've done this project or taught this unit several times, then you have some data to inform this. If this is your first time doing it, you're going to make your best educated guess. Or ask your teacher or friends, how long do you think I should allot for this type of project? So decide how long your students will need to accomplish the goal, and then give them all the relevant dates ahead of time. Now, those relevant dates are going to be attached to benchmark. They're the smaller assignments that they will complete along the way. For example, if they are doing a research-based assessment, and that assessment is a paper. They're writing a paper about a world theater tradition. And they have to submit this paper at the end of a 4-week period. Perhaps week 1 is some kind of outline or some kind of worksheet with critical thinking questions that you've given them. Perhaps week 2 is a source summary where they have to lay out all of the information on the sources and the research that they've been doing. Perhaps week 3 is some kind of first draft. Or perhaps week 3 is a one-on-one conference where they have several questions and things that they have to bring to a discussion with you, right? Those are the types of benchmark assignments you want to lay out for them from day 1. And then if we zoom in all the way, we obviously have to make sure they're doing their work on a day-to-day basis. So daily progress are those daily check-ins as students students develop the knowledge and skills they need for the task at hand. So in keeping with the same research-based assessment, and they're preparing a paper, for example, on any given day, you are front-loading information that they need, that they're going to be able to utilize to write this final thing, right? So anything that you use as check-ins during class, if you are using graphic organizers, if you are asking questions, if you are having a Socratic seminar, if you are having them do a think, pair, share, any of those things, those are daily progress, things that are all formative assessments. All right. Some examples, and this is in no particular order. A lot of these examples go for or are attached to the more performance-based assessments. So things like games. A game is a formative assessment. I mean, if you are or a drama exercise, like a repetition exercise, their ability to do that exercise, go deeper with it each class, that's something that's helping them for their duet scene. That's a formative assessment. A table read is a formative assessment. Table work is a formative assessment. If you are performing at the end of these next 8 weeks, you're performing Water by the Spoonful, your first table read of that play, and then the discussion that you have about each one of these characters, about this story, about the themes, all of that is formative assessment work. Quizzes, polls, group meeting minutes. This is what I like to do. When they're working in groups, I want to make sure that everybody has a job, that they're submitting notes of what they've done in their group sessions. So that's what I mean when I say group meeting minutes. Individual feedback sessions, rehearsals, self and peer assessments, research guides, outlines, and source summaries. If I had more than 30 minutes today, I would dig into each one of these examples, but I don't. But I encourage you to think about the ways that you already assess. And if some of these are intriguing to you, consider adding them to your toolbox, because it really helps to have different ways of navigating assessment. It keeps things crisp and keeps that pace bubbly, just like we like it in our scenes. Okay? All right, let's see where we're going next. All right, so summative assessment, formative assessment, those are the basics. Now, I wanted to make a suggestion to you, and that's when you can, get yourself an extra set of eyes. I can't tell you how valuable this has been for me. I think that it can be really, really helpful to have that extra set of eyes, because we spend every waking moment with our kids. I think nobody else at school besides the theater teacher and the band teacher, y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we spend the most time with our kids of anybody else in the school building. So we can become a little biased in good ways and bad ways. So sometimes it's good to invite a fellow educator or even industry professionals into our space, into our rehearsal, or into a performance that can pick up on areas of growth that maybe we have overlooked. We can overlook them because of that bias that I mentioned, or simply because we get tired. We get tired, and we don't always have time, the time that we want, to develop our vision, to go out and see the shows we want to see. And so we get kind of caught in creative ruts. And I find that getting collaborators and pulling people in snaps me right out of a rut and just reminds me what's going really well in my program, and then what some things are that I can work on. Some opportunities that you can take advantage of for outside feedback are inviting a teaching artist to sit in on auditions. Do you have a friend that works at the local theater in your town? Do you have a friend who serves on one of the judging panels of, the Susie Awards or something like that? Invite them to come sit in on your auditions, or to come see a performance. Use an outside evaluator to assess student portfolios. I do this every year, and I love it. I think I will never not have someone else look at my seniors' portfolios that they submit for their pathway and their fine arts diploma seal. I love the feedback. The kids love the feedback. And, if I've been telling them that they're wonderful for the last 4 years, I think they stop believing me. It's kind of like the mom thing, right? If your mom tells you you're beautiful, you're like, oh, it's just because you're my mom. But if someone else tells them, they feel affirmed, right? So it's really nice to have someone else who knows what they're doing, who's knowledgeable in the content area, to look at your students' acting portfolios or their technical theater or design portfolios and be like, write them up a whole couple of paragraphs about what they found really great about their work. And then I encourage you to participate in events as you can, obviously, as your budget and your district permits you to. If and when you can participate in events that include feedback. Some of those events are 1X, the Thespies at the Georgia Thespian Festival, or Thespian Conference, or the International Thespian Festival, or the Schuler Awards. All of these, I know the competition type things can be a little bit scary, and or some people are not into competitive theater, and I get that, but I do find that the feedback that comes with these events is invaluable because you have other eyes on your work, and you're able to use that again as data to make any significant changes, improvements, or even just feel affirmed with the product that y'all have put out. So now what? Okay, so we've assessed the kids 5 million ways. We've assessed them on a daily basis. We've done all the formative stuff. We've had rehearsals, Socratic seminars. They've done performances, presentations, etc. And now we have all of this information about how our students performed this school year, or even in this unit, or even on this week, right? Whatever your time frame is. 2 ways that I think are really great ways to use your assessment. The first one is to use summative assessment to see the big picture. So it's kind of your framing, if you will. Did your students achieve the overall goal? Did you give them enough time, and was it used wisely? And what needs to change before you give this assessment again? These are some guiding questions that you can use for utilizing this information to see the big picture. Then with formative assessment, you want to use that to serve your overall goal. So while summative assessment is the window or the lens into what's happening, the formative assessment is the tool, right? So 3 things that I wanted to use as kind of guiding words: affirm, reinforce, pivot. So 3 ways that you can serve your overall goal using formative assessment is to either affirm what you're already doing. Yes, we are exactly where we need to be. Q, keep going, right? Reinforce. Okay, we're on the right track, but we need to add some knowledge or skill before we move on. So the kids are kind of getting these monologue analyses, or the kids are kind of getting this tap dance sequence. But I think I might need to go back and teach shuffle ball change again, because every time we get to that part of the choreography, they're tripping up, right? It's reinforcement. Or pivot. No, this is not the most effective strategy. And instead of beating a dead horse, or instead of continuing to stay on that guinea pig wheel, we decide we're going to use this information, this data from this formative assessment to change it up. Right? I keep teaching this shuffle ball change, and they're just not getting it right. What do I need to do differently? Right? So affirm, reinforce, pivot. That is it. Let's do a quick recap before I wrap it up today, because I talked a whole lot really fast. Summative assessment is what's happening at the end. I presented it first because I wanted to encourage you to lead with the project, give them all of the information and inspiration that they need before they even press go. Then the formative assessments are all of the stops on the way to that summative. So your timelines, your benchmarks, your daily progress. So deciding how long your students need for getting to where they need to go, all of the small assignments that they need to get there, and then those daily check-ins to make sure that they're staying on track. I encouraged you today to keep an extra, or to borrow an extra set of eyes for assessing your students. And then I gave you some things to think about as you consider how you're going to use the information that you get from these assessments. So thank you very much. If you want to join us on Godot Fine Arts PLC, we would love, love, love to have you. Please join the conversation, share with your teacher friends, and if you want to connect and chat more about the ideas or resources I shared today, email me at liliangina.quino@apsk12.org. Thank you very much. Bye.